And we are live. I hope it's Friday morning, so sometimes I hope that I go live and sometimes don't. But yes, we're live. So welcome to the Rebel Roundtable. It is Friday, June 20th, and I am so lucky. So my name is Jen Lee, aka Rebel Esquire, and I like to host all of my smarter and more fascinating colleagues who talk about all the things that lawyers should be talking about and doing. And today I'm so excited that I have Regina Unegovsky here. And I always mess up your name, and I love it. But yes, so Regina is the owner of Regal Tax and Law Group in San Francisco, and she is a fantastic tax controversy attorney. And so, Regina, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. First of all, Jen, I am your friendly neighborhood tax controversy attorney. My most recent happy client came to me with an IRS audit failure, which created about $3.8 million in additional or new tax for him, which we went ahead and contested, appealed, did all of the things, and we're looking at a current $5,000 adjustment instead. So he's a happy camper, and I think that's a great illustration of what I typically work on and the results I can sometimes achieve for my clients.
Very cool. I have some questions on taxes. So we're going to jump right into taxes because that's what
Sure.
Regina does, and she's super. I joked with her when I was sending out an email on this was I've never been so excited to talk about taxes in my entire life.
And of course, my response is we should all be excited.
Right, we should. Same thing with bankruptcy. I talk about bankruptcy more than the average person does. So, as a bankruptcy attorney, I got a lot of professionals, including lawyers, who avoid their taxes and they procrastinate, and that's not a good tax strategy. Why do so many professionals, even lawyers, avoid dealing with taxes?
I do think that tax has a snowball effect. So something happens, whatever it is, a major life event, the death of a loved one, a divorce, a disability creating injury, something major happens, somebody falls off of the track in terms of filing regularly, paying regularly, all of that good stuff. A whole year goes by, the problem compounds, the numbers are intense, and then it's just real easy, I think, to stick your head in the sand versus attempting to work or deal with that in addition to whatever, that life event brought. I do have a number of clients who come to me and they don't have anything that happened. They're really straightforward or direct. They just say, I just didn't take care of it. And then the problem becomes larger and larger and larger. The collection becomes more intense. It becomes insurmountable instead of a molehill type of net effect. The reason you see professionals who operate this way, Jen, is because the self-employed folks out there, or the ones with small businesses, are the ones who don't have that W-2 forcing them to pay their taxes every time they get a paycheck. So they can go that longer stretch of time without paying anything at all, and then the number feels way too daunting. So
Yeah.
that's what I see a lot.
And I think some of that is because lawyers were not really taught how to run a business necessarily. We don't set up things. And while we're great at giving advice, we're not very good at taking our own advice or following a professional's advice. And so I think a lot of attorneys don't necessarily think about their professionals that are not W2, don't think about how to actually structure it so that it works.
Sure.
And then snowball and it
Absolutely.
becomes daunting. Yeah.
Or, of course, you have a lot of folks out there who are amazing at whatever it is that they're doing,
Yeah.
okay? They're physical therapists, they are dentists, they are, you name it. They're so good at it, but they're afraid of numbers, flat out.
Mm-hmm.
They're just they don't want to deal with it. It is boring, administrative, all of those things, and it takes a long time to figure out what kind of help you need in, even if you did set up that business properly, who you're best attenuated to working with. Do you need a CFO? Do you need a bookkeeper? What do you need to help you, with that process? It just takes a while.
Yeah. And especially if you don't like numbers, that's okay. But then you have to be willing to hire and outsource for those
Absolutely.
things that the
Totally.
people that do like dealing with numbers.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
there's plenty of them. That's the
There are
good news.
there's lots of people out there. When I always find that some lawyers and different practice areas, like all over the place, bankruptcy is one of them, but we're often running across clients who have tax problems. Besides calling you, like what should we be looking for? When do we refer someone to a tax controversy attorney like you? And because I see a lot of this crossing over into family law, even criminal law sometimes,
Sure.
bankruptcy. Yeah.
Sure. No, you're right. Family law often, gives me a shout. The family law practitioners are often working through a community property estate that includes a tax balance, and we're not 100% certain how to put that into an MSA, for example, to validate it precisely how it'll be handled, or should it be handled before somebody files, right? Trust and estate attorneys call me often. Estates and trusts are audited just as routinely as everybody and everything else.
Hmm.
So if they're not attenuated to providing that audit defense, they're going to need some type of help for the client. I see real property folks, which is odd enough, but we'll have somebody buying a house, selling a house, what have you, and then all of a sudden you do a little bit of digging and there's a tax lien, taken out on that property. So I think those are outside of CPAs, accountants, other folks in the tax world, probably my most high touch, my most high frequency phone call. I do what I can to point people in the right direction. Sometimes there's not enough time, in the big picture for me to work some magic. They need a quicker effort, a quicker response, something like that. But if I can help, I will.
And so let's talk about that real quick. How fast do tax problems accelerate or escalate once the IRS notice there's something wrong? Because
Yeah.
ignoring notices is one thing, but how fast is it going to be? Oh, now my account's frozen because there's a
Mhm.
levy.
Jen, over the course of time, I have seen it all. I have seen people who have their passports taken away, their wages garnished to within 20%, and bank accounts leveled within 90 days, right?
Yeah.
Something so intensely fast, you're just kind of like, wow, how did that happen? And I have a recent client who didn't pay or do anything at all for 10 years from 2015. Okay.
Yep.
9 years if you count filing pattern, established in 2016. And she's only just now seeing some negative net effect. So overall, I have seen it all. I will tell you, I feel like this is a policy and politics driven question,
Mm-hmm.
because when we have a Congress in place that increases IRS budgets, things happen faster, right?
Right.
More people working, more people pushing timelines, more people processing, all of that. And when we have a smaller IRS budget and fewer people working, less happens. We are moving into an automated age,
Yep.
right? So some of these actions that we're talking about is just a computer spitting out a result.
Yep.
To me, that can be really difficult because more people are impacted, but fewer people are working at the IRS to help manage a resolution path.
Yeah. And I think that's the really frustrating thing too, is because you get these automated notices. Even so speaking of lawyers who get
Yeah,
notices from the IRS, I got a notice a couple of years ago when I had switched from a sole prop to an S corp, like a corporate S corp, but something got reported under whatever. It was just a misreporting, is all it
sure.
was. But it took me forever to get figure that out. And you get these notices, and you're like, wait, this isn't actually correct. You have it wrong, but how do I
Right.
fix it almost? And those automated notices kill me because clients then who don't understand the system at all then completely freak out that something is wrong when really
They're
it's
very
just,
scary looking,
yeah,
but
they
they are
are.
intimidating, and they're intended to be intimidating,
Yes.
right? I mean, that's
Yep.
the nature of collections, and it's not just for tax, it's for any type of collection. I mean, nobody's softly asking you, hey, can you please resolve this with us? It's not,
Yeah.
that's just
No,
not the
it's
nature
not
of
warm and
the,
cuddly.
yeah, exactly. It's not the nature of the beast.
So, because I like to be a little controversial and get in, going back to what you said about the budget for the IRS
Yeah.
and having people that are able to look at things. And even with automation, things are wrong. You have to actually have someone working through the process. It doesn't work to AI this. Even I, the master of loving AI. But what I've also found is that so when the budget is lower and people aren't looking at it, the people who aren't paying taxes continue to not pay taxes. Like if there's no collection enforcement, there's nothing going on. There's no incentive for them to actually pay their taxes when they haven't been. So I find that it's kind of this disconnect between, yes, you want to have a government budget that's reasonable, but then
Sure.
also how much are you missing out on by not doing any type of actual enforcement of things? So
I think what you're referring to is typically called the tax gap.
yeah.
Okay. That's the number between what we all file that we owe and what we actually pay.
Mm-hmm.
And quantifiably, I believe, don't quote me on this, definitely let's AI research this in particular, but I believe that has hovered anywhere between 6 and 15% of GDP annually.
Yep.
Okay. And so, yes, sometimes we have governmental administrations that are dead set on squeezing the gap, right?
Yep.
Creating more money in the system without printing money. And sometimes we have a lesser incentivized, type of government that is not so focused on the gap in particular. Sometimes we have a greater focus on auditing, like we did just a few years ago. I
Yep.
had more audit cases than I think I'd ever had before at the same time, all working simultaneously and together.
Wow.
So I do think though that as we move forward into this automated age, the thought process is don't all right, don't pay. We'll send the computers after you, basically.
Right.
And then it's up to you to get your bank account proceeds back, right?
Yep.
We've been satisfied. It's actually California's playbook. It's done it really, really well for a really long time. And I think that the IRS is now finally getting on that school
Yeah.
bus of, all right, we take money first, ask questions later. It's up to the taxpayer to resolve this, but we can't devote resources to it because it's too high cost to collect.
Mhm. Yeah.
So if we're talking about reasonableness, what all of the taxing agencies are always looking at is how much did it cost to collect this $1? And if it exceeds that amount, obviously that common sense reasonableness starts to lose value.
Right. And I think the frustrating part of that too is that going after smaller dollar amounts and then seeing like these huge cases out there that haven't been pursued or haven't had anything done on. So I think like
Yeah,
the
that 10-year case isn't a small number.
yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's you need to go look at that
But
too.
somehow, if you owe California $75,
I
they're
know.
going to take it. They're going to find a way to get that money. It always happens. Yep.
Franchise tax board drives more bankruptcies in
Yep.
California than any other agency.
Absolutely. That aggression level is wild. But you know what? What is it? Fourth largest economy in the world? There's a reason
Yep.
for it.
Yep. Yep. But automate all those collections and freeze accounts. But yeah,
Yep.
that's the call you get is, oh, they froze my account and it wasn't accurate. I was like, well, what did you do to fix it before it got to that point?
Right.
And
I've had that phone call too. Well, it wasn't accurate, so I just didn't do anything about it because they should fix it. They made it up and they should fix it. And, I'm not going to sit there arguing with somebody about whose responsibility like it was to do something or not. It's just, do you want help right now?
are you seeing, so there's a lot of different industries out there that have tax issues that are coming on the horizon. We've got the cannabis issue, which I know you're involved in the cannabis side of things. And then there's the crypto as well. What are you seeing for modern tax issues these days?
I would say if we're looking at industries in particular, right, industry sectors, cash-based industries are always going to have, a harsher eye for compliance on them. It's just that cash industries are dwindling.
Hmm.
So, yes, now we're looking at industry slices like crypto, which presumably hides money theoretically or can, right, in a way that in the past cash would have. The audit protocol for crypto is 8 pages long of single space instruction. It's wild. That's wild. Just so you
Sounds
understand.
super, super easy to administer.
Yeah, it's wild. It has its own lingo. You have to know what you're doing. You have to have professionals who know what they're doing. It's a very tough, difficult area right now. And in my
Mhm.
experience, immediately has a suspicion associated with it. Same goes for
Something
cannabis.
shady. There's always going to be
Yeah,
something
yeah.
shady about it.
They approach you like you've already done something wrong,
Yeah.
and it's not neutral. I'll put it that way. Most audit is neutral in its nature when we begin, right? The
Yeah.
presumption is the taxpayer reported accurately, not the other way around. And if there's anything we're going to find, it's error, simple error, and it's going to be okay in small dollar or what have you. But
Yeah.
with crypto, it is the presumption is suspicious in nature, and same goes for cannabis for the exact same reasons. In addition, there's the cash element
Yeah.
of a lot of cannabis. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of enforcement, audit, collections, you name it, coming from cities, counties, and the state for cannabis. So, although all of them are driving these incredible numbers on the federal level, I'm not watching too much enforcement happen. So
Mm.
there's clearly a policy decision there, that we're just not dealing with it. We don't know how to deal with this question right now, so we're just not going to deal with it right now. We'll set it aside. They're secured, right? So they don't really care as far as creditors go. If you want to run debt at 8 to 10%, that's your choice. Outside of those two, for a hot minute, I had mechanics offices.
Oh, really?
I'm sorry, shops. There we go.
Shops.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was so wild. I had so many mechanics in my office, and they were all being audited, and all of this crazy stuff was going on. But that's all backed off now, right? So
Yeah.
it being that the audit numbers have dropped, I'm not seeing too much concentration in any given industry just right now.
Overall. Yeah. That's kind of funny. You wonder if they have like a little listserv internally with like, let's go target this industry
I
this week.
swear they do, though. They're like, we've identified all of these mechanics in your area, and they have not been audited in 20 years. We should do it just to do it. So, yeah, I swear that's the way that it happens.
We can always tell in the bankruptcy world when the trustees got together at a conference or something, because then all of a sudden, like these random requests will start coming out that someone in the 11th circuit tried. So let's see if it works in the Ninth Circuit kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I could see that happening. Absolutely.
What are some of the other like really common misconceptions that you're like, you roll your eyes every time a client says it?
Well, I do my best not to roll my eyes. I'm
Well,
gonna be honest,
internally
right?
rolling your eyes.
Internally sighing. Um, you know, Unfortunately, I meet too many people who have listened to those radio commercials, the TV commercials. I didn't even know there were so many commercials out there anymore, but apparently there are, right? The clickbait online, which tells them that everybody can
Hmm.
settle with the IRS for pennies on the dollar. And it is this enormous misconception. It is a 100% existing program, both on federal and state levels, right? Settlement opportunities in general. It's across many different types of
Right.
administrative agencies. There is that opportunity, but it's not for everybody, and it's not even the best case for every single different type of
Mm.
client. So when they call me and they say, well, I talked to somebody else who made it sound so easy, and I'm the one saying, no, this is pump the brakes. This is actually a really difficult process. And I'm just trying to be transparent with
Right.
you. about what all is involved. These are the steps that we're going to have to take. It's going to take 2 years. Are you okay with that? And a lot of times people are very grateful, but a lot of times that they have that cognitive dissonance about what they just heard from somebody else, and somebody else is offering them a path of little or no resistance, and that's what they want. So, I can't take that client in good conscience, and
Yeah.
so it is what it is.
It sucks when because late night television, I always
Yep.
joked for bankruptcy clients, it was the same thing because you're stressed
Yep.
out, you're watching late night television and they promise you the world. And then you
Yep.
call and
And they keep
they say, oh, yeah,
promising
we
it
could
to
do
you.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, they keep promising it.
absolutely. Yeah, let's just pay me $40,000 and I got you. And I mean, I've just talked to people who it's just it took me 4 minutes, literally 4 minutes
Yeah.
to validate that they're not a good candidate.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't need paperwork, I don't need anything. Oh, you have $10 million in the bank?
Not a good
Why
candidate
would the
for offering
IRS work
compromise.
with you? Why? So yeah, that's the
And
way
it's
it
so
is.
frustrating too, because people go for those easy solutions. They pay a lot of money for them. And then they're skeptical of the actual good solutions out there and they don't want to pay for it because they've already been taken advantage of.
Yep, they've already been taken advantage of, or they already got, I mean, let's be real, scammed out of some money. They don't
Yeah.
have very much to begin with,
Yep.
or maybe they do have quite a lot, but you're right, they've become very suspicious
Mm-hmm.
of, any kind of professional representation. So yeah, it just makes all of those companies that are out there just make it a tougher world for us all, for sure.
I agree. And I would say and at least my experience has been the IRS actually wants a resolution a lot of times on things. They want to work with people as long as you set it up correctly and you follow the guidelines. I think what people miss is there's a calculator on the IRS website that you could initially see if anything qualifies. But I think people miss that. They see it as this total adversarial thing, whereas a good tax controversy attorney can work through the system and work through the guidelines to get the best deal possible. Whereas these other ones are just throwing forms and bank
I don't
statements at
even know if
people.
they're doing that.
Yeah, sometimes,
They're just making a lot of promises in my experience and
yes.
then not executing,
Yeah.
right? But you're right, where there are a number of, I'm just going to say, even
Mhm.
maybe not scammy, but well-intentioned practitioners who just aren't very experienced. And they're throwing paper at the system,
Yep.
and the service eventually views that as abusive.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things where there's a tension, but that's exactly how I describe at end what I'm doing is I'm walking somebody else through a puzzle,
Mm-hmm.
and the goal of that puzzle, the overall goal is resolution that everybody can live with, the
Right.
IRS and the client, right? But ultimately, where the job is explaining where each piece fits. And now hopefully the taxpayer client is educated enough to understand what's in his or her own best interest. So sometimes people absolutely want that resolution. They want that, larger picture settlement. They think they can afford it, all of that. And then I tell them right now, 18 to 24 months, just the way that
Yep.
it is. And
Yep.
they just can't wait because of other life circumstances or goals. And that's when I
Yep.
send them to visit, a bankruptcy attorney, 6 months in and out.
Well, and so let's talk about that. I know you have a bankruptcy attorney in your firm, um, and all bankruptcy attorneys do like different things. Like some are more focused on consumer, some are business, that kind of thing. But at least you, as a tax controversy attorney, recognize that you can get rid of taxes in bankruptcy,
Oh,
and
$100.
a lot of people don't
Oh,
realize that,
no,
and
no, no.
they
It's the right answer a lot of the time. And to clarify, my law partner, Erin, she only does business bankruptcies.
yes, yeah,
So, on the individual side, that's ordinarily who will benefit from that bankruptcy. There's not a whole heck of a lot of reason to take a business in
right,
particular
yeah,
through that process for only just for tax,
yeah, I agree.
in general, right? And that's just it's just not the best mechanism if
Mhm.
that's the only creditor that we're really concerned about. But for individuals, listen, if they qualify and it's a good case for them one way or another, and they want a very quick resolution, I genuinely can't offer that. And it's not because I don't want to, and it's not because of my workload. It's because the service doesn't respond that fast.
Right. Right.
And I think that hearing that it does from other companies or online producers or whatever, is just setting somebody up to be, they're already upset right now, and now they're just going to be more upset in 6 months when it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All stressed out. But
Yep.
yeah. Okay. If people need to reach out to you, like I like to put out there, how do people find you? Are you on the internet somewhere?
Oh, hopefully in several places.
Yes.
Hopefully in several places. So it's regaltaxlaw.com, right, for all of our contact information. Of course, always feel free to reach the admin desk. It's just info@regaltaxlaw.com. And of course, my LinkedIn page is there. It exists. I do not promise I check it frequently. I'm not much of a socials kind of girl, but I will do my best to respond to any email there, as quickly as I can.
And remember, thank you. Remember that tax and IRS is a federal practice area. So
Yep.
Regina can help anywhere in the country or the world for IRS
Yep.
issues,
You got
especially.
it. State of California is also stomping grounds. I don't pretend to know other states.
Yep.
And the best ways to get through to them or anything like that, but federal is federal. Have clients
Right.
from sea to shining sea.
So my final question, because I always have to end out our Rebel Roundtable, is what is your Rebel anthem? Did you find one that when
I
you need to get
did.
pumped up at the gym, what do you
I'm
listen to?
so glad I took that 30 seconds to look. We're going to go with Tom Petty's I Won't Back Down.
Won't back down. That sounds like a great theme for a tax controversy
Thank
attorney.
you.
Thanks, Virginia. I will get that added to the Rebel Roundtable
I love it.
anthems on Spotify for our
I love
Spotify.
it.
Um,
And other
thanks
people
for
will
being.
too. Absolutely. Thank you.
And yeah, no, and we can always talk more taxes and more fun stuff. Regina has lots of interesting side things that happen with taxes. So I think there could be a follow-up
Stories
episode,
and stories and stories.
all kinds of stories. So
Yeah,
thank you. And check out the Rebel Roundtable on Friday mornings at 9 a.m. Pacific and 12 Eastern. And I will see you all next week. Thanks, Regina. Have a good weekend,
thank
everyone.
you. You too.